Well, I'm really pleased to say now that I'm joined by Paul Lawrence, who, for those of you certainly in the greyhound racing industry, will know very well. I've pretty much been involved in all aspects of the sports, from commentating to all sorts of media roles, kennel hands, racing manager, and of course, professional punter, which is, I guess, what we're most interested in, Paul. In terms of professional punting, I'm interested to know, when did you realise that you kind of went from a recreational gambler to a professional?
That was easy. That was 2001 when I was going to Romford, and I just started broadcasting. I'd been going to Romford for quite a lot, and spoke to Graham Blomfield, who was the odds compiler and the on-course rep for Ladbrokes, and obviously I knew him through Crayford. And he said, "Why don't you try and get the videos here at Romford and have a go?" And he kind of took me under his wing, really, showed me the ropes, and then he just took off from there.
And from there, you did meet other people that were very influential on you. And you said that you used to stay over the cheap side of Romford, but there you met a lot of people that sort of guided you along the way.
Yeah, when I first started going to Romford, which was the first track I ever went to, when I moved to Essex I come from Boston in Lincolnshire originally, and applied to join Ford Motor Company. It was a new course. It was a college course, and also on the job training as well within Dagenham. And a lot of the lads used to go to Romford. They came from all parts of the country, and it became, like a social thing. And we used to go over the cheap side, and I met guys. I spotted guys there that I thought, wow, they know what they're talking about, and it turned out they became long life friends later on in life.
And it's hilarious, I think. The man who actually introduced you to gambling and to dog racing at Romford was actually your college teacher.
Yeah, it was my college tutor. Yeah, Paul. It's like most things, I suppose. He was from Birmingham, and he used to go to Perry Bar and Monmore, and he said, "Come on, lads, we'll go over to Romford Dogs," and it was just, once I went there, and the atmosphere and the kind of camaraderie, I think, that was always gone with greyhound racing, it just grabbed me straight away. And we ended up sort of, it was only like having £1 and £2, and we ended up having a fiver on one on his say so, and of course it won. And then you just don't look back from then. It was incredible.
He gave you a book as well on betting strategy. So from the very early days, you were kind of thinking about it, a bit more seriously than maybe a genuine recreational punter.
Yeah, I've always been kind of analytical. The reason I actually joined Fords was because I was going to go to Middlesex Polytechnic, and I only got one A level, and that was maths. I failed my German, and I was devastated at the time. But like my dad said, you got to go out there and push yourself. And my uncle worked for Fords, and it kind of worked out beautifully because I lived with my auntie and uncle in Harold Hill, and then Romford was just up the road. And he gave me a book, and it was about a guy that went up and down the country betting horses, and it was something that really stuck with me, in that he kept records of his bets, and also it was a theory of horses coming late and define the handicapper, so have a quickening touch. And it's always sort of stuck with me, in that you need to bet winners, and if you think about it with dogs, you need to bet winning dogs, and not dogs that don't really want to win. And that was something that's, it kind of can always bite you on the bum. With betting dogs and watching videos now, you always need to find out the genuine ones and the ones that aren't so genuine.
From the early days, though, when you developed the interest in the sport, you actually started applying for jobs in the sport. And that took you, first of all, down the route of being assistant racing manager and then racing manager. I'm really interested in how that maybe influenced your view on betting greyhounds, because you see things from the opposite sides.
Yeah, I mean, when I was going to Romford, as I say, I was only a small-time punter anyway, and then I ended up going to the new Crayford with a couple of friends again out of Fords, and then they started having dogs at Rye House, so I kind of went along with them to Rye House, and a job came up as an assistant racing manager. And I've been at Fords for 10 years, and I just wanted to do something that little bit different, and getting into, it was a big jump, obviously, to leave Fords in the first place after being there 10 years, but I just was so into greyhounds, it appealed to me, and became an assistant. And then you learn all the the traits of how to grade, trials, watching dogs, where they run, you know, that sort of thing, and learning about the mechanics of the sport in general, really.
And of course, Crayford being associated with Ladbrokes, learning very much from the bookies side.
Yeah, I mean, to go from somewhere like Rye House, which was quite a backwater track, if you like, without too much sort of being high profile, I then applied. I was only there, I think, 14 months as an assistant at Rye House, and ended up applying for. I'll tell you a story actually. Before I applied for the Crayford job, I applied for a job at the Racing Post, and it got down to 2 people. I went for a second interview. Mark Palmer was the editor then, and the man that got the job was Hobbsy. So then I carried on applying for different jobs, and the Crayford race manager's job came up, and again I think I was kind of lucky in that they wanted someone that was young and enthusiastic, and I kind of fit the bill really, because I didn't have massive experience. So I think Ladbrokes way, they kind of then show you how they want you to operate, and obviously Ladbrokes being a massive company, and I think most people within the sport would always say that the Ladbrokes and the Corals tracks are probably the best run tracks that we've got.
How important would you say those times in the racing office were to, you know, your career now as a professional punter?
Yeah, well, I think really learning about how grading works, and yeah, because you as a race manager, you're making it hard for the punter. So you need to understand how to make a competitive race. And when we first got there, there was Jerry Bailey was there actually, and Jerry Bailey, he used to own Rye House, weirdly enough, and he was obviously very, very experienced man. But they'd had Roy Dwight originally. He was Elton John's cousin, and he was more of a footballer. But he was a nice fella. But he probably was just a stopgap, I think, because Peter Regan died, unfortunately, and they really had kind of an inexperienced racing manager. And when they took me on, yeah, I was inexperienced, but they always wanted you to grade 3 the field. And that was something that Race Balding, who was the race manager at Rye House when I was there, he was renowned for that when he was Walthamstow racing manager. So I kind of got that kind of ethos and that work ethic of making it competitive. And they used to have a bonus scheme there at Crayford, and they just kept making it harder and harder. We kept achieving the bonuses, and it was like a team effort. Adam Gutman was my assistant. Harry Bull ended up being also an assistant, and then I think Adam left, and then we took on Danny Raymond, and Danny Raymond's been there for years and years and years since. And I think that is the Ladbrokes way, Julie. I think that's the way they try and kind of get the best, basically, and maintain high standards.
So they try to get their edge by constantly changing up the people that are coming in to look at things maybe slightly differently.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that Ladbrokes are probably one of the leading players, aren't they, within the industry? I mean, I remember they were improving the tracks. They always try to go forward, or even at one stage thinking about running under their own rules. And you know, I think that to a certain extent that shows you there is an element of control of bookmakers and getting in their own little world as well. And in the end, I think that probably got to me somewhat. And I think I got too engrossed within that. And again, it was that 10-year cycle, and then I started looking for jobs again, you know.
I know I was going to say that, because you were constantly on the lookout for jobs, be it the Racing Post or at tracks. Was it to subsidise your gambling, or was it that just what you wanted to do? You wanted to work in greyhound racing?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've always loved working within the industry, and obviously, when I met Kim, my wife, at when we were at Rye House, we were training then, and it's, you know, when she actually went on holiday. I think we first met. I got a Kennelland's license. She went on holiday with her brother, and I put the dog. I really don't forget his name. Craganock Snow, a big white dog. He was a sprinter. Put him in the traps, and then picked him up, and he won it. And it was the first race he'd ever won as well. And it's kind of you just get that sort of, you get hooked. Funny enough, Ray Spalding, he was his wife trained greyhounds as well, and I think that was another. And he bred litters, and that was one of those things where you got from being a casual punter to being within the management, and then actually hands-on with the greyhounds. One of the things when I was at Crayford, and all the lads that were there with me, Adam and Harry and also Danny, when a dog came into the paddock to be weighed in, I would say 90 to 95% of the time I could tell you who that dog was, but not by his racing name, by his kennel name. That's how into the sort of the dogs that we got, and that was the kind of professionalism, I guess, in that's what Ladbrokes taught you, I think, really.
I actually notice that a lot now with trainers and kennel hands at tracks. You know, they know all the dogs inside out at their given track. How much was the gambling linked to the buzz that you got from putting a dog in the traps and having that winner, which is what would give me a buzz? How much was the gambling linked to that for you?
Yeah, I think obviously, when I first went to Romford and that kind of atmosphere, it was the smell and the even like the tickets and that you got when you had a bet and things like that. That was a buzz, and yeah, of course, gambling is a buzz. But when you go from, I suppose, being into management where you have to sort of take away that gambling. Some of the lads we still went to Romford, or we went to Hackney, say, as a bit of a busman's holiday, just to get out of the environment of the Crayford circle, if you like. Because it was Crayford, I find, is a real community spirit, and I've still got lots of friends there. You know, the Illingworths, they were there. Barry Stanton was a real good mentor for me, and yeah, putting a dog in the traps, Julie, and I've done it quite a few times. I could never profess to train a greyhound, and I could never run a kennels in my own name. It's probably just not me, but to do it under the tutelage of who I think was a genius, Ray and Sands, was brilliant further down the line, you know. But as I say, I've had a couple of instances where yeah, I've taken dogs to the track on my own and put them in the traps, and they go and win, and that is the biggest buzz. The biggest buzz.